Welcome to our next edition of the Foundation Speaker Series. My name is Karen Musanti. Donovin Lindsay joins me today, who has a passion for helping others succeed and overcoming obstacles. Currently, he's a corporate recruiter, stylist with Gap Incorporation, founder of Premier Career, and founder of College Knowledge, which is what he's here to talk with us about today. Donovin, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Karen, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to do this.
Absolutely. There are just so many things. When we met, there were so many things that we could talk about here. So we tried to narrow this down to the ones that are going to be of most interest to our audience, and we might even have to do another whole video. But let's just start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about Donovin as a high school student, college student. What interested you? What kind of things were you into at that time?
Yeah, so when I believe I was in ninth grade going to 10th grade, my parents had told me we were going to Disney. And I just remember being extremely excited and terrified to go on a plane because they told me we weren't driving. Fast forward a couple of months later, we're on the plane and I absolutely loved it. They told the pilots it was my sister and my first time flying, and they let us go in the cockpit, take pictures. And again, I loved it. Going home, I just remember, wow, I really like this. What can I do career-wise where I could, fly and travel across the country, travel across the world and see the world? And having been a kid always interested in lights and sirens, I always saw myself as a firefighter or police officer. And I came across this career path called a federal air marshal. And I just remember thinking to myself, how could I do that? So at a young 15-year-old, I contacted someone from the Federal Air Marshal Service. They recommended some schools for me to look into. I did that, but I also remember having a very, very good college readiness program at my high school. And that really prepared me very well. But I noticed once I got to college and I was doing, hundreds of campus tours to prospective students, that wasn't the case based off of the questions that they were asking. Because in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, oh, they should have learned that in high school. But, of course, every high school is different and the readiness is different. And, that was one of the first things that I remember when I was a little bit younger, realizing that, not everyone had the same, educational background, but also the same opportunities to prepare themselves to be successful.
Right. Hence the arrival of College Knowledge,
Yes.
Which the name in itself says everything you need to, giving students the knowledge that they need to make the correct choices about college, I'm guessing is where we're going with this. But tell us a little bit about how that started. Who do you work with that? Is it just you? What types of things do you do?
Sure. So I had the idea for College Knowledge probably about 2 years ago. In the height of the pandemic, I'm on Zoom, and I just remember talking with a prospective student to Penn State, where I worked at the time, who was clueless on the college process. It was him and his sister, and his sister was a recent college grad. And she kept saying how, even though she was just graduated from college, she had no idea how to help her brother because their parents didn't go to college. They were first generation college students. And also their high school didn't do well preparing them for college. So she's like, even though I just went through the process, I have no idea how to help my brother who was sitting next to her. So for about 2 or so hours, they were frantically taking notes because everything I was saying to them was so new. And 90% of what I talked about with them was just college related, not even Penn State related. And over the next couple of weeks, I found that so many of the people that I was talking to were in the same boat. So I don't know if my senses were more heightened just because of that one interaction, or was it that, I was just realizing more things now, being at home, having more time to think about things like we all did. But I just remember thinking to myself, if there's a student who wants to go to high school or wants to go to college from high school, no support at home, no support in college, how do they bridge that gap to get to that end goal? So I asked one of my sisters, who was a junior in high school at the time, and we were talking about just going to Google, and I found some really, really good websites out there, but you don't know what you don't know. So if you are looking to do something, but you need information, you kind of need a little bit of guidance as to what to do. So I had the idea of, what if I provided basic information to students to be able to just begin their search? So not even choosing or anything, but just to begin. So looking at differences, I think I was probably a junior, senior in college when I realized there's a difference between a college and a university. But depending on size wise, that could be, and what you're looking for, that could be a major difference in how you search. So, differences between colleges and universities, public versus private, for-profit, non-profit, community colleges, vocational schools. Should you even go to college based on your educational goals? How to prepare, what classes you can take or should take when you're in high school, because time after time I'd see students get denied simply because they don't have a specific class, even though they've got a 4.0, applying to college. But also one of the biggest things, what's financial aid? So many students don't realize what that is. So I really began to formulate this idea about 2 years ago now, and started to talk with people that I've worked with when I was at Penn State or other universities that I've been at conferences. And I did a pilot session, I remember, and I had 12 high school students in the ranges from 9th to 11th grade and their parents. And after the fact, they're like, Donovan, probably 95% of what you told me, I'd never heard of. So I was like, wow, I've got something. So I actually remember talking with my mom about this idea. And I always say my mom never passed down the creative naming gene to me, because I can give my mom an idea. And once she has an idea, she can give it a good name. Hence the name College Knowledge. I told my mom, within the next couple of weeks, we talk often, but I said, within the next couple of weeks, can you let me know what you think I should call this? And in typical my mom fashion, about 2 hours later, she calls me back and she says College Knowledge. And I'm like, that's it.
It's perfect. Good job, Mom. I'm guessing this is something that you can do both in person with families, with students, with parents, or you could probably even accomplish that virtually. So it doesn't really matter the distance. If somebody would be interested in contacting you, they don't have to be necessarily where you're from. They could be pretty much any place.
Yeah. So the original idea was actually to do probably one session every other month on Zoom and do it virtually. I started working, I was working on my master's, and to get some extra money on the side, I started working at Banana Republic. And my GM at the time, she read my business plan and she said, Donovan, I think you're kind of underselling yourself. She said, what you're doing virtually, you could also do in person with community organizations, or even connect with different schools and school districts to offset some of what their high school counselors may have to do now. Because, before the pandemic, if they were able to focus on college readiness and college prep, now they may not be able to, just because so many more things have been put on their plate, and just with job shortages and budgets and things like that. So I began to think about, what if I did do this in person? And the original idea too was also to do just large sessions, for whoever would sign up for these sessions. But she said, you also do it on an individual basis. So, of course, the more people you talk to, the more ideas you get, the more things change. But I have done virtual and in-person sessions for, one person to, a few people to, 50 or 60 people in an on-site setting. So lots of different ideas that I've had, but everything has continually evolved to be able to, for me, my team, to continually help students.
Sure. So there's more than just you. You do have a team of people actually who actually help you to run these sessions.
Yeah. So I have probably 11 or 12 people that help and volunteer with me right now, all having a college admissions or financial aid background in undergraduate or graduate admissions. And one of the things that we're trying to do now is not to just focus on undergraduate students, but there's a whole nother hurdle with the graduate admissions process. So I have 2 people who work within graduate admissions who are also assisting. So, and then probably 3 or 4 student interns that I've known over the years, or people have connected me to, but to give them experience in different areas like marketing and business management and fundraising and things like that. So not just me at all. I definitely couldn't do it alone. I have an amazing team behind me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you a few things pertaining to specific things that you may cover with families or students, just to pick your brain just a little bit. We won't give out all the keys to the castle here, but just want to talk about a few things that may interest our viewers, because I know you cover a lot of things like funding scholarships and helping people write resumes and how to act in a job interview. Can you tell us a little bit about what families should consider if they're deciding on a college or perhaps a trade school, like the difference between them, or what type of thing should be going through the thought process when deciding that?
Yeah, so a lot of the time students aren't aware of what a trade school offers. And a lot of the times I'm saying, if you kind of want to be hands-on with things, more than likely you want to go to a trade school. And when I worked in admissions, I would, as an admissions counselor, I would counsel the students, regardless of what the parents wanted. I would counsel the students, because a lot of the times the ideas were different. But there was a student who actually wanted to do plumbing, and he was in my office, and I had 3 chairs on the other side of my desk, and the parents were like, well, what type of engineering should it go into? And I'm like, well, no, like if that's your end goal, as much as I would love for you to come to where I worked at the time, Penn State, where I have 2 degrees from, like, I'd love for you to come here, but it doesn't make sense. Like, what you want to do based off of your end goals, you need to go this route. And we actually have our College 100 session is called basically Why College? The basics, where we ask students and we kind of get them to think about, what are your end goals? And these are the different types of pathways to get there. And a lot of the times, depending on what the student wants, college may not be a part of that. But if it is, we have sessions for them. If it's not, we give them, the resources. So not only are we trying to provide information, but we're trying to provide these resources for students, whether it be links or whether it, links to the correct websites, like reputable websites, or different things for them to use to just get themselves over that next hurdle or over that next step. So not only provide information, but also tools and resources for the students to get to that next step. But really getting them to think about, is this something that they like to do? But there's also many assessments out there that students can take. And I remember taking them myself when I was in high school, and it kind of ranks the top few careers or something like that. And then looking into, how do I obtain that? How do I get to that step? Is it college? Is it, just training? Is it, just work experience that gets you to specific things? But, I'm a huge proponent of college because it gave me such a great education, but so much of that education came outside the classroom. And I understand that, college may not be for everyone, which is why we offer a session specifically tailored to, it might not be for you. Here are your other options.
Sure. And I would imagine one important aspect that you cover, whether they want to go to college right out of high school, whether they're going to go to trade school or whatever, is resume building and writing a resume. So we always tell our students at our summer program, you should be starting to work on your resume. Correct in that high school students really need to start thinking about their resumes, and they actually start building their resumes in high school.
Yes, I totally agree. So with College Knowledge, I do help with that. And then my other business that you had mentioned in the introduction was Premier Career. And a lot of the times, a student coming right out of college, they don't have potentially an entire page to fill up for a resume. But when they start thinking about what they did in high school, then they're like, oh, I do. And I'm like, well, you technically have, a page and a half, 2 pages, but let's keep it to a page because of the jobs that you're applying to. But so often they don't realize how beneficial a lot of those experiences that they had in high school are to whatever job they're applying to, because you can always kind of pull things out of anything that you did to kind of relate to a specific position. And one of the huge benefits to starting in high school is, I always tell people it's great to have a huge master resume. So like on my master resume, it's probably like 15 pages. But any job that I apply to, I just go to that and copy and paste to the new resume. Because being with my full-time job now, it's crazy how much I see people submit resumes that don't relate at all to the position they're applying to. And so being able to have something like that and just to go back to, because although it takes a long time to do, it's very important to tailor your resume to whatever, you're applying to. So when a student is applying to a college and they may submit a resume, what's the major? I always ask, what are your interests? And make sure you highlight those in your resume. So, if you're taking, classes towards biology, you're not going to talk about your phys ed class or something you did like that on your resume, but talk about your grade in your biology. Did you join a biology club when you're in high school? Things like that.
That's awesome. And you actually have set me up perfectly for my next question. Because if you were to look at your LinkedIn profile right now, you have 19 different jobs, committee seats, experiences that you've held just in the past 10 years. And there's a whole broad range of things on your LinkedIn profile that you've done, from security guard or to lifeguarding or whatever, which proves that all of those experiences led to where you're at today, and they're all very important. And I think that's important for our young people. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, in that, many times high school students are like, well, I haven't done anything yet. Well, they have all those little things, Eagle Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Those are all important things to keep on your profile.
Mm-hmm. So very, very true. And didn't realize there was that many. But I like new experiences. I like to learn different things. And I'd say from college alone, I realized, because going into college, my major was criminal justice, and I wanted to be a federal air marshal, within a year or two after I got out. So that was my one goal. But my second year in college, I was involved in 16 different clubs and organizations. I held executive boards on 4 of them. I had 3 on-campus jobs. But that opened my mind so much that I can't even explain to you right now how much it did. But I could see myself doing so many different types of things. A lot of the things that I do or have done revolve a lot around communication. But being able to communicate, but also being able to help people, such as a lifeguard, or when I worked in security, or college admissions, being able to help people get into college, or the job, recruiting now, being able to help and find people jobs who may have been unemployed. But most of my interviews, it's been really funny, because questions that I thought I would be asked, I wasn't asked. I remember my job when I was working at Camelback Resort in security. I had that interview, and they were pulling hard on my internship experience in the juvenile justice office I did my internship with. But their thing was, you've worked a lot with kids there, and we're going to have so many kids at our resort. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I guess that does relate. But you just never know what's going to spark someone's interest. So anything in the field that you think, oh, that could, in somewhat way relate, you just never, ever know. So all the things that I've had, I've been able to talk about that relates, but someone's like, oh, I guess that does relate. But after I start talking about a specific position, I could see their face like, okay, that's very different than this. But, you kind of bring it full circle, and they realize, okay, this does make sense. And he does have really good experience, which has afforded me to get many different types of jobs in the last 10 years.
Absolutely. And having all those jobs, you've now created a huge network. So let's talk a little bit about networking, because I know that's so important. And not only creating your network, but then maintaining that network over time. And you never know what one conversation can lead to later on in your life.
Completely. Having worked at Penn State and mentoring and being able to advise many different student organizations, if I could teach the students anything, it was networking. And many of them today come back to me as like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you had me create that LinkedIn profile, or I'm so happy you pushed me to email that person or send a written card or something like that. But you just never know where that one connection will lead. And when I was at Banana Republic specifically, I ran into someone who then connected me with probably 2 or 3 people, that connected me with 3 or 4 people, that connected me with 3 or 4 people. And then I was able to meet you. So it's unbelievable how well networking works. But I remember for Penn State, I traveled. I did a lot of traveling. So I was in many different states recruiting. I left my campus one day, and I was traveling through 2 different states. Within the 4 or 5 hours, I made 5 or 6 different stops. Because when I'm traveling, I try to think about, well, who am I going to pass on the way? Let me, connect with them. I know one person liked a specific type of ice cream that the Penn State Creamery had. So I remember getting that ice cream, having it in dry ice, and then 2 or 3 hours giving it to them. And then I remember us sitting down for way longer than we should have, because I remember getting to my hotel at like 3 a.m. But I just remember that interaction that we had. I was like, wow, I'm so glad that I did that. But it led them to different opportunities, but also added to my network and my connections just when doing that. So, trying to stay conscious of who you know, but where they are physically, but also, what they're doing and how you can help them and how they can help you. Because it has to be a two-way street when you're doing that. But also to build those relationships, again, it has to be that two-way street.
Yeah. I know that when I first introduced you, I introduced you as a motivator. So what type of things motivate you? I'm guessing it's helping young people and things like that. But when you get up in the morning, what motivates you to just keep going and do what you're doing?
Yeah. So I'm very passionate about the things that I do, and I wouldn't do something if I wasn't passionate about it. So anything that I've ever done, I have to like doing it. So many people will get up and go to work or go do an activity that they really don't like doing. And oftentimes I've worked with people who didn't like the job that they were doing, and they were my colleagues. And I'm like, well, why are you here? You're on this earth for such a limited time. There's so many things that you could be doing. I do this talk about making your dash matter. And when I'm talking with students about the dash, it boils down to the dash on your tombstone. But I also tell them how there's a dash that you have in everything that you do, because you have a start time and you have an end time. How can you make that dash in the middle matter as much as possible? So that's what I think about a lot of the times. At times it can be exhausting because I am trying to give as much as I can to everything that I do, but to see the outcome after the fact, it's huge. And to see what I'm doing with students and people, helping them with resumes and styling people, it's like, if I can see that outcome and we've accomplished that goal, and if I have the knowledge and the expertise to help them do that, that's all that I need to, for that pat on the back, I don't need. It's more so seeing that person be successful, seeing them overcome that obstacle. And that's really what keeps me going time and time again.
That's awesome. We're getting towards the end of our time. I just want to thank you for being here. The information you've given us is invaluable. We could go on for hours about this. You and I met only a few months ago, and I'm just fascinated by all the different things that you can help young people with. So I'm happy about this connection that we've made, the network that we've made. Look forward to the future.
Likewise.
And I just want to thank you for your time here today.
Thank you, Karen. I'm so excited I got to do this, and I look forward to chatting with you some more in the future.
Absolutely. If anyone would like to reach out to Donovan to learn more about College Knowledge, his contact information will be provided following this interview. I know he would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.